Thank you, Madam President. As I mentioned yesterday, as we were preparing to vote to the motion to proceed to the American Energy Innovation Act, there is much to like, much to support in this energy reform legislation that we have proposed. So we're in the early stages here of legislating, and I think it's probably fair to say that perhaps we're a little rusty here. As we have told members, we hope to have a process that allows for amendments from both sides, that gives us an opportunity to debate these important and timely issues. But as we legislate and as we move through each step, it does require a level of cooperation. And again, as I mentioned, we haven't been doing legislating on a weekly basis, and so when it comes to just the process and the procedure of how this all comes together, maybe we're still in a little bit of a learning curve, but I've had an opportunity in previous Congresses to be that first legislative vehicle that we've really taken on in a period of time. We've worked through some of them successfully before, one famously unsuccessful. I don't want this to fall into the famously unsuccessful category. So I'm encouraging members to look critically at the bill that we have introduced, the American Energy Innovation Act, and work with us through this amendment process. We have received a number of what I would put in the non-controversial bucket category that I am hoping that we will be able to accept, and I'm hoping that we can work together to incorporate those into our underlying measure. I wanted to take just a few minutes this afternoon to highlight why the innovation title within the American Energy Innovation Act is so important, and what this bill will do to help support and increase innovation in America. When you think about who we are as Americans, what we're built on, we're built on a foundation of ingenuity and innovation. We pioneered the electric grid system. We pioneered nuclear energy. We pioneered horizontal drilling. These are many of the life, economy, world-changing technologies that you think of in this energy space, and the United States has led in these areas. But the policies underlying federal energy R&D have not been updated now in more than 12 years, a dozen years since we have last updated, refreshed, modernized. And so the question is whether or not they fully reflect the range of opportunities and challenges that we have. And I would submit to you that they do not. When we haven't kept pace with everything that is happening around us, it's important, it's incumbent on us to look to our policies. Modernizing our energy laws will support the scientific work undertaken by the Department of Energy, by our national laboratories, by our universities. It will also support the men and the women who dedicate their careers to scientific pursuits, individuals who truly form the backbone of American R&D and are a tremendous asset to our country. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, those of us on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee have spent the last year putting together this innovation package. And throughout that process, what we heard in committee from the experts was that 3 of the most promising technologies for clean energy are energy storage, advanced nuclear, and carbon capture, utilization, and storage. These 3 areas, we're told, this is where the promise really is if you want to focus on clean energy solutions. Our composite bill prioritizes all 3 technologies, as well as renewable energy and industrial and vehicle technologies. CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage technologies, will allow coal and natural gas plants to avoid greenhouse gas emissions and even allow us to make useful products from carbon dioxide. I've had an opportunity, I know some other colleagues have had an opportunity to go to some of these laboratories, not only in this country, but overseas, where we are taking that carbon, that waste product, and we are turning it into value. In other words, building materials, whether it is a sheetrock type of a process, or whether it's the equivalent of cinder blocks made out of carbon, that waste. So when we can change this so that we are taking a waste product and converting it to value, talk about technologies that can really change how we operate. Again, the carbon capture, utilization, and storage technologies will really allow us to advance in that direction. The bill also includes demonstration and deployment programs that focus on industrial emissions and direct air capture, which will similarly reduce emissions. When you think about the prospects and the possibilities for us with direct air capture, it was not too many years ago that it was a dream concept. Now it's no longer a dream concept. We are truly in these process of evaluating and piloting some of these technologies. I mentioned nuclear energy as one of the three. Nuclear energy is our nation's largest and most reliable source of zero-emission electricity. And within this subtitle of this bill, we have included the legislation that I've been working on, the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act, which would demonstrate advanced reactors to help restore our national leadership and keep our domestic industry competitive with the likes of Russia and China. So you've got the CCUS, you've got nuclear energy, and the third area, the third really transformative area, is storage. This is, without a doubt, probably the most popular topic within our bill. We have included the BEST Act from Senator Collins, which creates a cross-cutting energy storage R&D program at the Department of Energy. Its focus is on long-duration energy storage that can smooth out variable renewable energy generation. So this is a very significant part of our bill. With regards to industrial energy, our innovation package includes language that Senator Whitehouse had authored to create a cross-cutting R&D program to reduce emissions in 7 areas, including chemical production, steel and aluminum, high-temperature process heat generation, and industrial carbon capture. I think you will see from that provision that, again, making inroads into those areas where we see the highest emissions within our industrial energy sector. So as we see consumers demanding cleaner products, know that our bill helps ensure that American industries are going to be prepared to deliver on that. Another area where we are pushing forward, of course, is renewable energy, which we look at as has the opportunity to provide nearly limitless power across America. The costs of many of these technologies we've already seen come down significantly, and we take reasonable steps within this bill to move wind, solar, geothermal, marine and hydrokinetic, and other renewables to full commercialization. So to give some specifics in this space, in geothermal energy, we provide opportunities to responsibly develop more of the resource with new techniques and to co-produce critical minerals along with it. In my state of Alaska, we've got enormous potential within the geothermal space. So knowing that within this title, we have an opportunity to really help move out some of the new techniques that are out there is significant. For solar energy, we're working on new applications like solar paint, addressing grid integration challenges, and improving recycling. For marine energy, marine hydrokinetic. We're developing offshore testing centers to scale up new concepts. I remind colleagues, I come from a state where we've got more coastline than the entire United States put together, of all the coastal states there. So this is an area that I've long looked to and said, why are we not doing more when it comes to tapping into our marine energy sources? Our wind energy provisions include offshore and floating wind development and demonstration activities. So we are working to push out in the renewable sector some of these areas where we're still pioneering in many of these ways. We've demonstrated wind on land with great efficiency. How are we doing with offshore? What more can we be doing there? So by providing the Department of Energy with new tools and direction, we're helping to ensure that the United States remains the world leader in innovative energy technologies. Now, one of the challenges that we hear about as we discuss these cool things in the Energy Committee is how you get these great ideas, how you get these cutting-edge ideas from the lab to the market. And to address that, our bill reauthorizes the Advanced Research Projects Agency Energy. This is ARPA-E. This is the entity that helps these nascent technologies bridge this so-called valley of death and reach commercialization. ARPA-E has already delivered significant results with nearly $3 billion in follow-on private financing for its projects. We had the secretary for the Department of Energy, Secretary Brouillette, before the committee just today on a budget hearing. And he heard repeatedly from members on both sides of the aisle the value that comes from ARPA-E. Of course, developing new and cleaner and more affordable technologies doesn't benefit us just here at home. It can also make a meaningful impact around the world. We shouldn't just develop and deploy new technologies here at home. We should also sell them to other countries around the world. This is an incredible opportunity for economic growth. We know that will simultaneously lower global greenhouse gas emissions and help to cement geopolitical relationships that can span generations. So we'll be discussing more of the component pieces within the American Energy Innovation Act, and you're going to continue to hear me say that this is good legislation, this is important legislation, this is timely legislation after 12 years. But you don't necessarily have to take my word for it. Consider the work of the American Energy Innovation Council, which is led by noted individuals, luminaries like Norm Augustine and Bill Gates. They have found that at least 50% of the U.S. annual GDP growth can be traced to increases in innovation, and that innovation has been the predominant driver of U.S. economic growth over the last century. So when we say that this energy bill focuses on that innovation, recognize the value that innovation brings to us in the energy sector. The Council's members have also observed that advances in energy technology deserve particular attention since energy underlies virtually every facet of modern life, and without a sufficient, reliable, and affordable source of energy, the U.S. economy would grind to a halt. Well, they're exactly right in their words. And yet, the United States continues to allocate less than 0.1% of its annual federal outlays to energy R&D. So just kind of put that into context. This is an afterthought in our budget, and unfortunately in real life for too many Americans. We take for granted that when you pull up to the gas station, you're going to have fuel there. We take for granted that when you flip the light switch, the lights are going to come on. But the reality is, it takes a tremendous amount of work to make that happen. And it's innovation that brings this all to us. Innovation is worth it. The proof is literally around us with everything that we do. Given our history, given our people, given our institutions, I know that this country can continue to lead the way on new technologies. What we need to do is make sure that we have policies that help further incent them, that do not drag down that opportunity to meet those challenges. So I'm confident that we've got a good bill in front of us, a strong bill in front of us. I appreciate the support that the Senate has shown for our bill thus far. I look forward to working on amendments as the week continues. Would urge colleagues to provide us with those matters that you have been working on. We want to try to accommodate, but we also recognize that we haven't been in this process before where we have had the opportunity for open amendments, so we want to try to do it right. We want to try to be efficient as we do in the Energy Committee, and we want to be fair to our colleagues. So with that, Madam President, I look forward to the input and the cooperation from fellow senators as we proceed with the discussion about the American Energy Innovation Act.